Hello there. So thanks for joining me again today. Hi Carol, I see you're there. And so today I'm going to be working on some clouds, some big fluffy clouds, which Carol will appreciate. So this is a continuation of the painting I've been working on of a couple on a glacier for their wedding photo, and this was shot up in Alaska. Very dramatic. And so I did this area below here, which is not the final layer. There's still a little bit more to do right here, but I kind of covered most of it, and then I'll be painting in this part over here. And so, oh boy, OBS assassin me again with this palette cam. All right, so it likes to do this thing where it looks fine before I go live, and then I go live, and all of a sudden it's different. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to fix the palette cam because it looks way too small. All right, and now it's also the wrong magnification. Okay. Well, there's the technical glitch of the day. Hold on a second. I'm going to have to just adjust both of my views here with this because it's not right in either of them. Maybe it's the camera. Maybe I'm blaming OBS and it's really the camera that's causing the problem. I don't know. Of course, I do have two of the same exact camera that are running at the same time now. All right, so anyway, while I fix this and try not to waste too much time on it, I'm going to be working on the clouds today, and I don't know why that zoomed in so much. It's not supposed to be zoomed in like that. All right, hold on one second here, because there's nothing going on right now with the palette, but there's gonna be. So let me just try something here. Yeah, that's not doing anything. Okay, one day, well, there was one stream I did where there was no weird stuff that happened with the technical things. One day I'm gonna just have a new life where there's none at all ever again. So, yeah, I don't know how to get this not to be zoomed in. It's not supposed to be. Oh, wait a minute. Here's a thing. Let me try this. Okay. So, I think I have got something here that will help all that. No, it's still messed up. All right. Well, anyway, I'm gonna just have to start. So, there's my palette. You can see that as showing some foil there. And that's not what I need to move there. That's it. Okay. I'll just try to sort of paint what's like in the frame for what you can see there. Okay, and hold on one second here. This is really awesome. Okay. So, underneath the magical foil over here, I've got some color I was using last time. So I was using a lead white with some cerulean blue here. And I'm going to be using a titanium lead today. Lead titanium, same thing. Because it's more opaque and it's brighter, it's a brighter white, and it's also slower drying. So I actually wanted to do these parts here with the faster drying paint because I wanted it to just dry, so then it's quicker that I could paint over it and do the kind of final layer on it. And so, here's my lead titanium. I'm going to be probably using a lot of that today. That's probably not enough, but I will just go with that. Oh, I guess there's more showing than I thought actually on the palette. On the rebellious palette cam. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be painting some parts that are the blue of the sky, which goes from darker blue up high and then lighter blue down below. Hi Melly, thanks for stopping by. And there's going to be the shadows on the clouds, so it's going to be darker blue, light blue, but then the clouds are white into kind of a bluish gray. So down here it's just blue into white. There's no variation. Are you painting while we're working on this, Carol? So what I'm going to do is kind of make what I call two tracks here, where I have the white into the blue and then white into a black, and then it's not going to be just black for the shadows. It's going to be a combination of the blue and the black up there. Kind of looks like it's just, you know, gray when you see it on the reference. Okay. So it looks like it's just gray, but there is a little blue in there, and that's kind of the case a lot of the time. So, Carol, what are you working on? I'm going to get more of my cerulean out here. And I'm going to be adding a little bit of oil into that because the cerulean dries kind of matte. And don't want to have that happen if I don't add any oil. So, okay, I'll just add a little bit from in here by dripping it out. You need maybe 3 drops. It's probably good. Just mix that up. So, a lot easier to just fix what you're doing. Oh, you're doing clouds too. Wow, it's a cloud party. A lot easier to fix things turning matte by just doing it the way I'm doing it right now, as opposed to painting it, then it's matte, then you have to deal with it and, you know, do things like, you know, decide whether you want to oil out or not, where you add a layer of oil in there. But it's definitely easiest if it's just avoided altogether like this. It's like health problems. A lot easier to take care of them before they happen. And I think I'm actually going to get a little bit more oil because it's still looking a little bit matte. It's not too much, but a little bit. I had originally sucked up the oil into my little tincture here, but it eventually fell out. Okay. All right, so and once I have this blue out, I can use it for, you know, the 2 tracks. I'm going to actually want to push it over and have some black right over here. So I have a little bit of blue and the black. Well, the black's really strong, so it's not going to be a whole lot of black either. You know, I think I'm going to get a little bit more. So this will also help to slow down the drying time of this blue. All right, now I'm going to get refined linseed oil. Now I took off that child-proof cap that was on there last time that I couldn't get off because it was also adult-proof. So I have the inside part of that, and now it's just, you know, I got rid of the top. Hey, Carol. So it's just regular linseed oil here I'm using. And finally get started in just a minute here. Linseed oil is actually just flax oil, so it's good for painting and for your body. And I probably wouldn't eat any that was meant for painting, unless I was sure there's nothing else in there. But it'll probably not be anything too serious to worry about. Sometimes they'll put things in there to actually preserve it and keep it from going rancid, like I think vitamin K or certain things like that will kind of delay the oxidizing process, but that's more of a thing that you would have in a grocery store oil, not so much something for an artist, because you don't want to prevent oxidizing, because that would lead to potentially weird stuff happening with your paint. There's been cases where there was people using mediums they really shouldn't have been using with their paint, and there's something called weeping that can happen where, like, years later it'll just start dripping, just because. Boy, this taking a bunch of oil here, making sure. All right, I'm gonna add a tiny bit more. I've said it before. I think this is all I'm gonna need, but I think this really is gonna be it. Using a little bit more of this today than I was before because I got a big area to do. See, I don't want to go too far with the oil because then if it becomes runny, then that's not what I need to become more transparent and harder to work with. Okay, so Schmelkelberry. So Carol, you're gonna work with oils now over top of the acrylic, or are you working on a different painting? Because you can work on the same painting if you do acrylic first and then go over it with oils, but probably don't want to do it while, you know, they're both still wet. Okay, so I think that's enough of that nonsense. So we're gonna get the black out. And get a little bit of that. I was planning to set my palette up early this time like usual, but I had kind of just a couple of things before I started today. I actually have braces on the top of my easel that are kind of customizable depending on how thick the painting is that I'm working on. So I just took off the one piece in case I need to bring the top brace down so it's thinner than it was before. This way I won't get a huge shadow on the top while I'm working. But I might be, actually have a clamp on the back there, and then something kind of like a zip strip that's like a beetle strip that's holding it on. So right now, if I pull on this, it's just, you know, not really going anywhere. But just working on the side, sometimes it starts bouncing a lot. So I might want to just bring down the clamp. It still doesn't, but not as much. Okay, so I've got what's looking like a pretty dark gray here, and here's something about clouds that's good to know. However dark you think your gray is on your palette, probably darker than that once you actually start working on the clouds, because they're so light that just the tiniest little bit of gray really shows up, you know, because they're just got that really bright white look about them. And so very easy to make your shadows too harsh when you're doing clouds. So that's something, even when I'm careful about it, I still have to just be really careful. I have to like just do a little bit and see if it's okay, because it's oftentimes just going to be more than I'm planning for even when I'm aware of it. All right, so this is going to be way too dark for what I need, so I'm just going to leave that aside there. I don't think this is going to be light enough here. It's getting kind of close to that area. It's like maybe just a little bit more white. You can see this white I'm using here is a little stringy. Got long polymers. I just saw a video the other day of some kind of weird substance that has such long polymers that you can just start pouring it out a tiny bit from like a beaker, and then it'll just suck itself out of the beaker, even if you kind of tilt it back up so that the gravity's not pulling it out anymore. It'll just keep on going until the whole thing's empty. Very weird. All right, I have a feeling this may be a little dark still, but I'm going to just start figuring out where these clouds are going now. So I think I'm going to get a kind of middle ground, kind of a white here. I'm actually going to just move this foil over, and I'm going to bring this other paint over also, because that's really the other white that I was using that dries faster. I want to just have this going right into the titanium here. When you're using whites that look pretty similar, not really paying attention, you might kind of lose track of where the one is and where the other one is. So that can be a little bit of an issue sometimes, but mostly I just paint with one type of white for the painting. It's not too big of a deal, but I have a specific reason to use the two different ones here. just from putting that foil on there, you tend to get the skin around the edge where it dries a little bit. Which I don't want to get chunks and flakes in there for what I'm doing now. How many types of white are there? Well, there's a lot more than I have. I have a lead white number 1, which has linseed oil, lead white number 2, which has walnut oil, titanium lead white. There's titanium white on its own, which is not actually the most archival white to use, so I don't use it on its own anymore. There's Kremnitz white. There's stack lead white, which is very expensive. One tube could be $80 or more. And there's all kinds of other ones. There's lots of them. There's lots and lots of them. Right, so I don't think you really need all that many. So, like most people probably just use one. But there's certain cases where one will be better for what you need, and other cases where another one will. I don't know why my titanium is a little chunky. I think I need to a little bit of oil in there actually too. It's like a little bit too thick. Of course, I just got a bunch of blue in there. For these clouds, I feel like I'm going to try to do them kind of, you know, instead of working in layers, do it all directly, all wet into wet. I might go back and work on some of them a little bit more later on, you know, after I basically got it done, but it's not really the kind of thing I want a lot of texture on, like the ground. There's lots of harsh angles and things on the ground there. So it's also not really as necessary. There's not quite as much detail going on there. Maybe just a little more oil over here. See, especially with something this large, if you're really making a lot of big marks, if the paint is really thick, it can sort of slow you down. So having it just liquid enough that it's not gonna take too much effort to move it around, really speed things up. All right, so that's better. You just kind of feel when it's the right consistency. Okay. So now it's just sort of a middle blue here. Another thing with the different colors is like certain colors will mix differently with others, or this titanium white can kind of go a little bit chalky when you add colors in there, whereas the lead, it tends to sort of hold its you know, the other colors saturation will tend to hold a little bit more as it gets lighter. But certain colors, especially like violet, if it loses too much intensity, it can just sort of start to look kind of grayish. So that's not good, unless you want gray. So much like a lot of the things going on down below, you know, getting every cloud in exactly the right place is not that big of a deal. It's even less of a deal really because the clouds move all the time, and once you look up and see them, they'll never be that way again. Because, you know, just a few seconds later, they're already moving. And then there's certain ones that are kind of poofing up and growing and doing all kinds of things. But there's also certain things that clouds do and certain things they don't do. A porcelain white? I'm not sure if I've heard of that one. Is that made with actual porcelain, or just kind of looks like porcelain? all kinds of colors out there that I think I'm going to go a little bit lighter with this. That I'm going to get some more oil in that little bit that I already separated too. It's all kinds of colors that I've never used, and there's really a lot. And there's plenty of colors that are not really as popular as they used to be, and you can get them from like Rublev. And there's maybe certain other colors that some people will make, but not too many, like not too many brands. And then there's the really popular ones that are sometimes not necessarily actually the name that, like the color I'm using here is called cerulean blue. It's not really cerulean though. It's just kind of a common name for that pigment at this point. Just like gesso that we use is not really actually gesso. So a lot of these names on the paint tubes are just what they call them. It's not necessarily accurate to what's in the tube at all. I mean, they could really just make a tube and, you know, it's yellow, and they could just call it purple if they wanted to. There's no regulation for that. You have a lot of people that weren't happy if you did. I have a lot of confused customers. EW5, so that's pigment white number 5. So it's not titanium, is it? There's a site called Artist Creation. They have all kinds of information on pigment there. Very useful place. And I've looked on there for all kinds of things. You can see some of the colors really have a lot of different names that they list. Like some of them will have like 10 or 12 different names. And you have certain colors that are not really made by anybody anymore because they just either are way too toxic or they don't exist or whatever. They have to come from somewhere. Somebody's got to mine them from someplace, or some of them are created in labs. So I think vermilion is very hard to get. Yeah, I think Kremnitz is another lead white. I haven't used that one actually. There's a really big process for stack white. Yeah, titanium. So there's a lot of well, people that are like really paying attention to, you know, best practices for oils. I think I might have a little bit too much space up here. Like I said, not really that big of a deal though. People that are really paying attention to all this stuff, there are some that are very concerned about how well titanium is going to hold up over time, because it's a new color compared to what people have been using for hundreds of years. You know, lead white was used for the longest time, and then in the 70s we discovered how toxic it was, and you had kids eating lead paint, you know, off of like chipping walls and stuff in apartment buildings, which lead actually is sweet. So then, you know, there was a lot of laws, or maybe not a lot, there was laws that were made just basically limiting it, where I've heard in Europe you can't even get it at all in a lot of places, like not even for artist oil paint, but it's only allowed in artist oil paint in America. And so we're kind of in new territory with lead or titanium. Okay, so schmelkelberry, you know, and now I know that's how you got this way. Well, you know, probably good to stop eating the lead paint. I mean, unless you want to just keep going in this direction and see where it leads. Yeah, flake white, it's another lead one. I think flake is just another name for lead white. Like, there's nothing really unusual about how it's made or anything like that. By the way, if you have zinc white, just throw it right in the trash. it is completely useless, and it will make your paintings potentially crack over time more than any other color. That's another color that wasn't used until, I don't know, the 50s or the 60s or whatever it was. And there's things that already have, like many years ago, started cracking that people used flake white for. Yeah, I don't use anything if I know it's not going to hold up over time. I don't feel like wasting my time on something that's not going to last. I mean, if you want to just do something like a mandala and blow it away in the wind when you're done, that's fine. But if you want it to last and you're using flake, or not flake, but you know, titanium or especially zinc, not good colors for that. Well, Milkberry, you're talking about zinc, mixing it with other pigments, because even if you mix just a little bit, like, you know, if you have a tube of paint and maybe 5% of it is zinc, it can still mess up the rest of the paint. That's how bad it is at cracking. So it's really not worth using at all. I'm looking at where I'm like laying all this stuff out. In between the top of the groom's head here to the top of the painting. Looking at where this one cloud is on the reference, it's like a little bit below halfway, those 2 points, maybe right around here. Maybe even lower than that, maybe down this way. Oh, how you need to bait and switch paint? Well, if you're using zinc white, just switch it. I don't know about the bait. Hi, Marissa, and I've got a bunch of people joined here. Cody, hi there. Yeah, there was a study that the Smithsonian did, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago now, where they looked at flake, not flake, I'm saying flake white. They looked at zinc white, and they were just kind of studying how long it actually lasts before it starts breaking down and cracking. And it was really, it was like, I think as bad as like even just a few years, like less than 10 years. In some cases, they found examples where it started cracking. So that's bad. There's also cases where people have used mediums that, like there was one that was really popular back in, I think like around like 1968 or something. There was a painting teacher that was very popular, and he had a lot of students, and he made a certain concoction of medium, and he recommended all the students to use it. And one of the things in that medium is resin. Forget if it was mastic or, you know, whatever, some kind of resins in there. I think mastic's resin. I don't use it, but you shouldn't be using any kind of resins in your paint, again, if you really care about making it archival, because if you clean the painting after it's been varnished, anything like that can come off when you're cleaning it, so the solvent can get rid of things that are in the paint that are not supposed to be coming out. So that was another kind of disastrous thing that a lot of people did, which now, you know, it's like you didn't know it at the time, but now we can see it didn't work out well in the long run. Yeah, Anita, it's like, sure if you were on before, but I was just saying how like the name of the paint, really, they could just name it whatever they want. There's no regulation for that. So the only way you can really tell what you're getting is to look at the back and see if it has the pigment code listed. But like some of the cheaper ones don't really even list that. Or there's some brands that are like pretty decent paint, but they just don't list the code, the pigment code, which for me is, I feel like that's just like not reasonable. And there's only so much space you really need on a tube of paint just to have like the name of it and the logo of the company. I mean, you might as well just list, you know, important things like that. So I definitely see that as like a negative if a brand is not labeling things like that. And then on top of that, some of them will only list the code instead of actually saying whatever it is, like, you know, the chemical compound, and you can look it up, but it's just like an extra step that I feel like is not necessary. Helena, we're just talking about the ills of titanium white and zinc white. Not sure if we ever talked about this before, but zinc is terrible. Titanium is not as bad, but also not the greatest. I recommend for people that are like not extremely, like super serious about what they're doing, like titanium is probably okay, but just zinc is just garbage. And the other thing with lead, you know, it's super toxic. So if you're the type of person that paints and you get paint everywhere, probably just stick with the titanium. Like if you get it on your hands and your face and everything, because you definitely don't want to get lead poisoning, you know, just from painting. I wasn't really sure how I was going to lay out these clouds. I guess I'm just doing it this way. This looks a little like a dog running through the air, like a really long dog, maybe a fox. So I'm seeing animals in between the clouds. Look, here comes his tail. So alkyd oil paints, I have some alkyd oil paints. I don't really use them very much. The ones I have really smell. They're petroleum based. So like the alkyd itself, I think, I can't remember for sure, but the actual part that stinks in those paints are petroleum, you know, based solvents or whatever is in there. And then the alkyd is like another part. So I have a solvent-free fluid from Gamblin, which is an alkyd. Let me get it. Where is it? Hiding from me. I've got a lot of things over here to look through. Okay, well, anyway. I don't know where it went. Well, it's around here somewhere. Oh, here it is. Okay. So I have this one that's like an alkyd painting medium, and this is an alkyd resin. But like I was saying before, resins are not good to paint with. Alkyd resin is the only kind of resin that's not an issue over time when you're cleaning the painting. So, you know, they're fine. But I think as far as like, you know, holding up over time, the alkyd paints, I think they may be okay. I'm not really as up on them because I don't use them. The only time I basically at this point, will use anything like that is like, you know, they dry super fast. So if I am gonna, you know, ship a painting and I notice there's like a tiny place that got damaged just like on the corner, like just from like pulling it out of a thing, and it maybe brushed up against the edge of, you know, a box or whatever, sort of like the place where it was being stored, it might just kind of sand down just a tiny little white spot on the corner. So maybe I'll just like take a dab of paint, put it on there right before I send it, because it'll be dry very quick. So, you know, years ago I used to use it for like base layers and stuff, and there was a time when I painted with it, but it just really stinks. It's just not healthy for you, so I'm not really as interested in using it anymore. You know, I think I want to get some more oil in here. This paint's a little bit stiff right here. I think I might have missed some of the oil getting in there when I was separating things out. That was a little bit, maybe too much oil for that one little bit, so let's bring a little more paint in. some of the stuff with like being concerned about, how things hold up over time, it can be pretty nerve-wracking just trying to make sure you don't do anything wrong. But there definitely have been cases throughout history where there were paintings people did where there were disastrous things that happened later on. Like there's something called asphaltum, which is sort of like basically like oil that just oozes out of the ground in some places, apparently. I've never used it, but a long time ago when artists used to make their own paint, somebody might just be going along on the road and kind of go stop on the side when they see like a black puddle of stuff coming out of the ground, scoop it up and paint with it. But that might have been something else. And there's one artist, I forget the name, but he did some very large paintings with asphaltum, and the cracks are so big you can actually see in between them, like they've separated out to the point where you can like just look right down to the surface. So there's nothing to be done with those. That's just how they're going to be because it's so extreme. So try not to get too concerned about, archival things. I mean, I pretty much know everything I need to know at this point about just what I'm using. And not doing things like that could lead to problems, but I don't know where I was going with that sentence. So anyway, certain things are not really necessarily definitely going to be a bad issue later on, but it's not recommended. And other things, it's just kind of a risk. Okay, so I'm going to just look at this from further away. Like that little spot I just did up there is a little small, maybe. And the way I'm doing this is I'm actually putting this color down mostly where the blue is going to go. So the space next to it is going to be the cloud. There's different ways you could do the line and kind of like which edge you're sort of using as like the actual edge you're going to be keeping. All right, so I think I'm gonna probably come back to this and adjust it a little bit, but I'll bring it over a little bit more now. But I'm gonna keep going and just like adjusting the rest of it. So sometimes it's kind of hard to just lay things out in really quick lines like this, but generally try to do that just because it seems to just really, number one, it makes things go faster because you're making quicker little marks, but aside from that, it's almost like you can get things sort of in the right place easier because you're not sort of just slowly adding a little thing that could stray off in one direction or the other. You're just kind of putting it in really quick. Then you can see where it's going. And right over here, I think this is maybe a little bit too low, so I'm going to just wipe it off. This palette view is not too bad now. I make a little adjustment before. Like before, I was adding in some oil to my titanium lead white here. If you ever feel like, you get some paint out and it's a little bit too thick, if it's really bad, you might start painting with it and it's not really sticking to the surface as well as it should, and there's these little kind of balls that will just kind of start falling off of it. That's definitely when it doesn't have enough oil. I mean, it could be like that same thing could happen if you paint on cardboard or something and it's absorbing the oil out of the surface, or out of the paint, I mean. But if that's happening, then that means it's what you call underbound. So that's not the greatest for the paint as far as how it's drying and how strong it'll be when it's done, you know, with the oxidation process. So I'm gonna pay attention to that and add a little bit of oil if that happens. It's not the worst thing that can happen, but it'll be stronger just if it has enough oil in there. So where I'm putting all these different things up here in the sky, I'm looking at where this stuff is down below. Like there's a cloud that ends right up here, and it's kind of right about that spot as far as where this little gap is here between the mountains. That's maybe something like that. I'm not trying to go too thick with these lines I'm putting on here right now, because I may not be able to finish all of this sky before everything dries that I'm working on. I don't really want too much texture right there. It's not a big deal on the edge of the cloud, but a little different than all the ice and everything underneath there. Getting a little bit of a drum effect here on my painting. That's my favorite thing about painting on canvas, was like when you stretch your own canvas and then, you know, you coat it with gesso, it gets real tight. You tap it and it kind of goes, bow. That was the thing I liked the most about painting on canvas. So you kind of get that a little bit with panel, but not as much. You know, it's just very stiff. That's definitely one of the biggest things you can do, though. Really, it's the biggest thing to make your painting archival, is painting on a rigid support. So regardless of whatever colors you're using or any weird amounts of medium you're throwing on there or anything else, just using a rigid support will make it last longer than anything else compared to like stretched canvas. So by rigid support, I mean just board, like something that's not flexible. Oh, hey there on Facebook. I don't have the names show up the way I'm seeing them, but yeah, I do commission. This is a commission right now, actually. So, sorry, I didn't see your message before. Yeah. You want to just send me a message with some information about what you're interested in. We can definitely talk about that. And so sand them down and paint over it with some other design. What was that about specifically? Not sure how old that was. No, yeah, a little bit. There's a few places in these clouds here that there's some really noticeable sort of almost like, I want to say landmarks, even though they're in the sky, but they kind of stand out more, make it a little bit easier in some ways to see, like that little bump right there. Actually, I think that maybe needs to move to the left. Oh, yeah. Putting really thick paint on is a little risky if you're painting in the impasto style. You know, I don't really do that, but you know, I know some people love it, so it's actually safer over time, and even in the short term, if you build up the layers just a little bit at a time. I mean, the actual best way to paint is if you do it all in one layer, then there's no concerns about, you know, how well the one layer is going to stick to the next. But if you want to paint thickly, it's safer to paint a few different layers that are building up the thickness that way. Okay, so you're looking at what to do with that painting since it cracked. I mean, if it cracked already, I don't know, like painting over that, you may still run into some problems with it continuing. Like, there was one time, like one of the things that you have to be careful about in general with cracking is if you're painting and adding oil to one layer and it's going to dry very glossy, the next layer doesn't have as much to grab onto. There's not as much tooth to it, so it can kind of like the new layer can kind of like slide off of it and make little openings and cracks here and there. So I had that happen one time years ago, just by accident. I added enough oil to this one color, is burnt umber, which dries, you know, that's the most matte and fast drying color I think in existence. So I had that happen, and I didn't want it to happen with this next part I was doing, so I added some oil to it while it was still wet, and I went just a little bit overboard, and the next layer I put on it, it just cracked. Or actually, maybe, I'm trying to remember now if the second layer was burnt umber, but anyway, it cracked. Like, there was one layer, the next layer cracked over top of it. I just painted over it again. The second time, it cracked again. Painted over again, and the third time it cracked again, so it just would not stick to the layer below. So I think I had to just kind of like take off the layer I just put on, and then, or the last 3 layers or whatever, and sand it down. And then that way it got this more of like a rougher texture to it, so that it wasn't having, you know, this super glossy finish. Like, I always like to compare it to, like, if you think about if you're wearing sneakers and you're standing on a frozen lake, you know, in wintertime, and if somebody comes up and tries to push you, you're just going to go right over because you got no footing. If you have those same sneakers on blacktop, you know, all the little bumps kind of stick together because the rubber squishes into it. So that's kind of what it's like with the paint layers, just forming, you know, a good physical bond. So there's physical and there's chemical bond. So that's a physical bond that will help everything to stay where it's supposed to be and not do any weird cracking stuff. Because crack kills. Or at least it feels like it does when it happens. It's no fun. I haven't had any weird stuff like that happen for a long time, because now I know a little more about it. But even if you know about it, it still can randomly happen by accident if you're just, you know, estimating the wrong amount of oil you're putting on a layer or something. So you don't want to go more than like absolute maximum 30%. Like if you have a mixture of oil, you don't want more than 30% of that to be I don't know what happened here, but I made this mark in the completely wrong spot. I guess maybe that was the one edge. Anyway, I think when I started out, I was just kind of making this one little cloud edge here, which now I'm just going around and basically doing the edge where the sky runs into the clouds. But as I was saying, 30% maximum for the mixture. You want to be your oil, your medium that you're adding in there. If you go above that, probably going to be too much and cause problems. So that can lead to cracking also. Well, Trump Lloyd, well, I guess you could try something like that. Sometimes you can find interesting ways of turning problems around in a painting, and you might have something creative happen there. You're like, oh, that's a cool thing I didn't plan on doing. Oh, you know what? This whole area here is too low. I'm looking at the space up there on the top, and it's coming down too much. So I'm gonna just bring it up. Yeah, this is all wrong, but whatever, it's fine. And this actually little thing over here, like I was noticing before, that needs to come over to the left. You know, I feel like you're not really seeing too much of what I'm doing here because I'm standing in this spot, so just thinking about moving my camera. just see what happens if I bring this over here. Mixing things up. Okay. Here's my face. Okay, so I'm gonna just go in here and fix this little spot here. Wow, that's like way off. This actually is up here. Kind of like that. It looks like a little hat up in the clouds, like someone was having a picnic and they just left their little sun hat up there. So, I think I need to actually bring this up too. Again, I'm looking at what's going on down here. And compared to this cloud right here, even that one doesn't even match. Getting too caught up in polymers or something when that happened, I guess. And because this is actually going to be a darker gray right here, I don't need to bother too much with that. Well, yeah, the glaciers are melting. Nothing I can do about that with how fast I'm painting, but if it were up to me to save the glaciers by painting fast, we'd really be done for. I mean, maybe the woolly mammoths can save us. For those of you that don't know, my brother just told me, they're actually bringing back woolly mammoths. I don't know how many people know about this. I didn't hear about it until just a couple weeks ago. Part of the thing they're going to do is put them up in the tundra, like lots of them, as they stomp down the snow, which supposedly is going to help to kind of contain some of the greenhouse gases. So, that's nuts, but that'll be really something to see. Okay, so there's something kind of weird still going on here. I don't know. This is too narrow now. Hey, Luis. So, let me bring this back down a little bit here. Something that can happen sometimes too is like I'm making this blue area, like the blue line here is going to be part of the sky, and just kind of like looking at the right side of that as far as like where everything's supposed to be can kind of get a little bit confusing visually sometimes. But I mean, it's clouds. I don't think there's really too much of a danger of anybody looking at anything I'm doing when I'm finished and saying like, that's wrong. I'm gonna scrape this off. Because it's just doesn't need to be there. Hey, anybody on Facebook, just let me know your name when you're making a comment, because I'm using a multi-streaming site, so it doesn't allow me to see whose name is on there when you comment. But hi there, whoever you are. Yeah, apparently because the woolly mammoths are not that old compared to dinosaurs, they still have liquid blood. I think I just saw something the other day, like they found a woolly mammoth frozen and there was liquid, they called it gushing blood, that was still locked in there. So apparently the whole thing with like Jurassic Park with getting blood out of, you know, mosquitoes that are stuck in amber, I think eventually it just, even in there, it sort of dries up or whatever, or kind of breaks down. But because the woolly mammoths are only however many thousands of years old, they still have some liquid blood that can be used for the DNA. Oh, hey. Hey, William. Oh, it's been a while. Yeah. Well, if they made woolly mammoths with acid for blood, that, and a woolly mammoth xenomorph, that'd be scary. It'd be a lot slower, though. So here's a fancy little tool. This is a silicone-tipped brush, which I don't know what people actually are supposed to use this for. I think more like painting, but I like to use it sort of as an eraser. I just come along here. You can scrape off the paint a lot better than you can with a palette knife. And it can really get down to hardly anything being left on there. So you have to just get it at just the right angle for it to work. It can be really useful. So I've never seen anyone else use these for that. I mean, I don't see people using them for much of anything in general, but they're really convenient. Actually, I'm going to take this off too, now that I'm at it. I'm going to just go hog wild with this thing. So you can see it's really gotten down to hardly anything being left on there. Very convenient. I mean, I guess that's the word. Well, as far as I know of, there's no zombie apocalypse that they're bringing back from the dead, since they haven't actually found the zombies yet. Maybe that'll happen in a few more years. But yeah, there is a lot of concern about the zombie apocalypse. I mean, it seems like it's kind of died down a little bit in recent years, but who knows, it could still happen. Alright, so I think I'm just looking at this area up here now to see if I actually got everything right. It looks like the space is about the right thickness up there. The blue coming through here. Little Panama Canal yet, right. Well, plenty of time to prep. So, just, yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna leave it. I don't want to get too extremely specific with what I'm doing now, because these kind of big shapes I'm doing, they could be really off compared to where I think I'm supposed to be putting everything. Now, there's an area right over here. There's just this one little spot I'm gonna put in here. And maybe one like little triangle shape. Okay, and then the rest of that's just cloud. So, hey guy, how's it going? Okay, Anita, thanks for stopping by. Alright, and that's mostly it over here. Well, actually, there's one little spot right over here. I'm gonna just put this in. It's getting kind of harder to see down on the bottom here exactly where the sky is, because it gets so much lighter in that area. And sometimes that's really very obvious. Sometimes it shows up a lot more in photos too, because of depending if you have like a UV filter on there, I guess. But it can be pretty dramatic. If you ever shoot something like this with a polarizer, it's nuts how much of a difference the polarizer makes. And like every time I use a polarizer, if I'm shooting anything, I'm just like amazed. It's like Harry Potter's camera. So Harry Potter doesn't really have a camera, I'm sure. But if he did, there'd be a polarizer on it. Now that I've noticed, this looks like a prancing fox going right through the middle there. I don't think I'm going to be able to unsee that. Sort of like he's flying, like a super fox. There's this little area right over here. This just kind of comes down. Might be getting a little low, actually. Yep, I think that's too low. I think it's the first time I've ever called Billy. I called you William before because that's what it said on the screen. just reading what it was saying. So you been up to any shows lately? Any cool places? This is all wrong. I have to just go in there and fix it. With my magic eraser thing here. So, this is kind of like, you know, when things have to re-enter the atmosphere, they've got to just hit it at just the right angle. Sort of like that. You got to just, it's too far this way or too far that way, it's just not going to really work. But, I mean, I guess you've got a little range there, but it definitely does not work that well if you just kind of don't get it just right. Oh wow, cool. I have not played my keyboard for a long time, but I'm gonna do it again. It's gonna happen sometime soon. I need more of this color. Almost, I'm getting close to the end of this whole like cloud like layout area. So I don't really need too much of it. I mean, I can use it again for the other stuff I'm going to be doing, where I'm actually painting the clouds. I guess I'm going to do the blue sky first, where I have the darker area going down into the lighter area. And then I'll actually paint the clouds because they have a lot more sort of specific varying things happening in the sky. So this is one of the kind of the contrasts that's happening here. You have the sky is just like even across the whole thing. It's just all dark on the top and all lighter on the bottom. And then the clouds have all these different pieces and little chunks and things happening. None of them are doing the truffle shuffle though. And I talked about Goonies last time. I don't remember if it was a chunk that made me say it. Talk about it. Okay. I don't know if PJ's on here, but PJ, if you're on here, Billy said hi. Peace. So, thanks for stopping by. And have fun at your show. Whichever next one you're at. Okay. So now, looking at where this is compared to the head over here, kind of going up on an angle. Looks, I guess, about right. And a slightly darker blue now, but I was actually thinking maybe I want to go a little bit darker. So I did. So here's a little fun fact. Back when Edvard Munch had his show with his very famous scream, there's actually, you know, there's a couple of them, but he had the scream in there, you know, the person yelling on the bridge, which actually was painting, or actually I think it was a drawing actually, that he did when he was, I think, walking around with, was Gauguin, or somebody, and there was this really, really red sky from the sunset. Kind of freaked him out, so that was what the painting was based on. But the show really didn't go over well. People were saying he must have been nuts, and they were just really not ready for it. So then he was really bothered by this, and later on, it was just recently confirmed, they found that he actually wrote on the drawing after the show, "Surely created by a madman." I think he wrote it in, I'm not sure, it was Monk, I guess. I don't remember. Was he German? Edvard Munch? That sounds German, I guess. So that was his little addition after his show. I guess his way of kind of getting back at people. Okay, so now this cloud over here on the right, I'm gonna down to right about here, looking at how high that is compared to this part. Pretty similar. Norwegian. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, well, I think this is in the right spot up here. Looking at the negative space, which is the area up there that's just blue. Seems about right. Bring this over a little bit. Okay, so this little area here and a couple kind of islands, and then that's going to be about it. So I don't know if this is taking a long time or if this is just kind of a normal amount of time for this. I mean, I guess it's all right. The other white that I was talking about earlier, which is just the lead white with linseed oil, dries really fast. So just even after like one session, before it's even done, it may start getting thicker, which can be kind of annoying sometimes if there's really a lot of paint and it's all starting to get thick. It can get harder to use it. So for something like that, I don't really put out a whole lot of it one time usually. Now, I think because there's a line going right here, let me just bring this in, going right up to the foxtail. It's one of those things that grows next to swamps, but this is an actual foxtail. Of course, by actual foxtail, I mean it's a shape in the sky, which is not a foxtail. So it's not really supposed to be blue, but it's just very thin, so I can cover it pretty easily. I'm thinking there's probably about 10 to 15% of what I say each time I go live where I say the exact same thing that I say every time. Okay, so then over here, let me just do the same thing because this is going across this way, pretty flat on the bottom. And then, well, I don't know if this is a little bit low. You know what? Yeah, it's probably low. Because I'm looking at the space over here and it seems like it should be much higher right around there, unless this is just not low enough. Let me back up and look at this. One cloud over here looks a little funky, just the way it's going up on an angle, because they don't normally do that, but maybe we're seeing it kind of going away from us. I'm gonna bring this down and bring this in right over here. Also looking at how much space is underneath here on the right compared to how thick this cloud is up here. think it maybe should come up a little bit higher. Yeah, I think let's go up. Sometimes you can't really tell if everything is in the right place until you actually do it, which is not really always fun, because if you do it and then you can see, yeah, it's definitely wrong, then you have to just get rid of all of it. Now this painting is so big, when if I'm standing back and trying to, you know, not get too close while I'm working, I can't even see kind of the painting far enough away just from standing where I would be just working on it. I have to back up just to be able to really see the whole thing well enough. So once you get to that point, with the size of a painting, it kind of changes things a little bit. Like I can see it all just standing right in front of it, but really to be able to get a good look if anything is going wrong, I have to back up further than that. Anybody have anything fun planned for Halloween coming up? Costume ideas? Extremely expensive lawn decorations? Saw some things at the Spirit Halloween last year. Gigantic Grim Reaper type, you know, guys get on the lawn that were animated and stuff, like moved for like $700 or $800. That was really surprising. That's nice that people actually want to spend that much for Halloween. But I was a little bit, as I said, surprised. Okay, so almost got this one little area over here taken care of. Oh yeah, Beetlejuice. Sure, that's going to be a big one this year. There's a lot you could do with that. Better not say it again. Oh, Brian. Ahead of the curve. I think they started advertising for Halloween in like July this year and some of the stuff around here. Commercials and things. I mean, it's September 19th. Come on. I will not ask about Christmas until after Thanksgiving has happened. And that's that. I don't want to hear a single reindeer song until after Thanksgiving. Christmas in July thing is super weird. I will never accept that, ever. A white pumpkin eyeball inside an orange pumpkin. So does the orange pumpkin have like a little shape carved out so you could see the white pumpkin inside of there? It's an interesting idea. Well, a little bit, little patches up here, just hanging out on their own. I don't know if I really need to lay that out. Well, yeah, I guess I might as well. And we're just covering this all with blue, so doing the blue first and then painting back over it later, and probably be fine. I don't know, whatever. Not a major commitment. It's done already. So I think I might be done with all these areas where the blue is going to be running up against the clouds. Oh, wait a minute. There's one area on the reference that's kind of hard to see. I mean, if it's that tough, you know, if I need to really bother with it, for what I'm doing now, probably not. Well, just gonna take a look from back here. Gotta still paint in those mountains too. But I think they're pretty much where I need them. Getting to the point now where there's a lot of lines and things happening where it's getting a little bit hard to see what I'm actually looking at, so probably a good time to start blocking in the blue. Of course, that's going to be a whole lot of blocking in and a whole lot of blue. So I guess I will do that. Yeah, you know, I got my gray out here. I don't really know how much I'm going to need that today, actually, because it's already an hour and a half that I've been doing this, just about. So I'm going to get some more white. Maybe I'll start with some of the top blue, actually, and then get more white. Yeah, I'm just separate this over here a little bit more. I definitely don't want any gray in the sky where there's no clouds. Oh. Yeah, the Bjork song, Joga. Yeah, I guess the video is kind of like this. Yeah, that's very observant. Mr. Lang. Well, maybe I'll just make a video when this is done with that song playing and see how long it takes to get pulled down. Probably not. But you could. What's going on with Bjork? I haven't heard anything from her lately. Imagine she's still doing something. Alright, so I think I may want to get a bigger brush here. I am not going to sing the Bjork song. You can just sing to yourself over there. Well, Yeah, I think I'm not going to use the one I'm using right now. The brush I'm using is going to be, it's going to be a little too firm for that, so I'll get a different one here. Okay. Gotta get the oil off of it. Oh. Thanks, Samara Art. Thanks for following. What kind of art do you do? And also, are you streaming? I mean, not right now, but, you know, at some point throughout the week. I wonder how many streamers are doing something about not crossing the streams. As Halloween comes up, Ryan, what? It's a pretty good one. So Bjork is probably dressed up as an elf crawling through the thickets of Wales in search of the totem magic that will release magical drugs onto the human race that will create world peace. Well, if she's not doing that, tomorrow's another day. I hope it's going to happen soon. If anyone's going to do it, might as well be Bjork. Okay, so I need to just test this blue here, which I'm not sure if it's quite dark enough yet. And I need to make sure I don't paint on my clouds because they're not blue. So let me see here. My filbert. No, that's actually just about right. I thought I was going to be wrong. Well, okay, I'll just do a little more here. Kind of thinking, I don't know if I want to get some more oil in there because this is going to be something I'm going to put on there and I'm going to leave it. I don't really want to go over it at all. So I think I am going to get a little bit more oil on there because it's looking just a little bit kind of matte. I've got all this gray here, which is kind of in the way, but fine. So I'm going to actually just take this off now that I know that's the color I need to start on the top here. Because when this is all finished, I'm not varnishing it before I bring it to, well, I'm not going to bring it to my client, but when I ship it to them, I don't really want them to get it and the sky's all splotchy looking because it's not shiny when it dries. Of course, when you varnish it, then it'll be even, but you know, it's one of those things, kind of a catch-22 with doing commissions and then delivering it before it's varnished. Some people maybe don't mind waiting, but a lot of the time they're not going to really want to wait 6 months to a year. All right, so I'm going to go in my chair here because I'm going to mix up a bunch of this blue. One thing with adding oil to paint, like I was saying, you want to never go over 30%. If it's paint that's already kind of looking too matte, the rules are a little bit sort of offset for that, because you don't really want the paint to dry in a way that doesn't look like, if it's a little bit matte, that's okay, but if it's like very not matte, it's really not ideal. So the whole idea is you don't want to go super glossy. So by adding oil, if it's just getting it to a point where it's like just basically drying where you kind of want it to be, compared to the other colors, sort of a more average, amount of gloss, then that's part of the factoring for all that. I think I'm gonna have to maybe, well, it's tough to just kind of estimate just while it's still wet exactly how much you need when it's, compared to when it's going to be dry, but yeah, I'll just try this out. If it looks matte when it's still wet, then it's a good indication it's going to dry that way. So there's definitely colors that you get it out of the tube and it looks really glossy, and that's kind of how they typically are, but sometimes you can note, if you're really paying attention, you can notice that they don't really look that wet, like that shiny when they are wet. Okay, so I get a bunch of this because I'm really going to be using a lot in that top area there. Maybe this is, well, one good thing about something like this is that I'm going to be changing the color as it comes down, but I can just add white if I need more, or if I don't need as much as I'm going to mix up. Because it's no fun mixing a whole bunch of paint for something and then you paint it and you realize you have like half of what you mixed left at the end. Just kind of sucks. But in this case, it's just going to be basically the same thing, but more white. We'll bring this down. All right. Probably going to need way more than that, but let's start it. I don't know if I might even want to start putting the paint on there with my palette knife. But see here. All right, I feel like this is a good gloss level, but I am going to put it on there with my palette knife. It was a little bit like spackling a wall. I'm not going to need this exact dark for that whole middle section. And it's going to be getting a little bit lighter as it comes down. I think, just now that I've done a bigger area, I'm just kind of making sure that's going to be the right sort of value. I think it's okay. Sometimes things look different once you put a whole bunch of it on there. One little test might kind of change when it gets to a big test. Not really a test at this point, I'm just painting it. But larger areas don't always show up the same way when you do a little place to try it out. Just going over it to even it out and sort of get rid of the super flat texture from the palette knife. Some people would just leave it, but I don't really want to make things inconsistent for the rest of the painting. Since I'm not going to be using the palette knife that way anywhere else. So sometimes you get these kind of cool little spots where right over here I just kind of like blend this in with clouds. Sort of gets a nice soft edge like that. It'll look really cool. Love clouds. So have to really be careful right here not to paint the wrong area because there's not really a lot going on, but it's kind of all a bunch of little detailed stuff going on right here. So it's going to start actually looking like a sky now that I'm painting the blue part in there instead of just having a bunch of lines all over the place. So that'll be nice. I'm going to just put more on the right side with my palette knife here. See, I'm describing what I'm doing because it's not obvious that I'm using a palette knife to put paint on the surface right now. But yeah, that's what it is. Definitely feels more like you're decorating a cake using a palette knife than a brush, but that's fine. Maybe it's just a gigantic flat cake. It's lifted up on the side, made with poisonous things to eat. Some of these places where it's up really high like this, I get a little highlight from my light and it looks like there's a white spot there, but then I move one step to the left and it goes away, so it can be a little bit kind of annoying when you have something this big, just as far as like highlights coming off of the light, because you can't really put it anywhere that you're not going to get some kind of highlights happening. But it's just part of working on something this big. I mean, the annoying part is really if you miss something and then you realize later and you have to go back and fix it. Then you have to adjust something that seemed like it was done or whatever. Alright, I'm going to bring down, actually I'll just use my brush for this. I'm going to bring down a little bit more this blue here. Just kind of get it about the same thickness as the left area. I feel like painting something this high up, it's like, for how much I have to raise my arm. It's like those guys that have the motorcycles with, what do they call it, like the victory handlebars? Just like up in the air while they're riding. Driving? Riding. I guess you drive a motorcycle, but people always say riding. I mean, technically you ride a bicycle, but people don't really say that either. Okay, so now I gotta get some more of this blue out. And keep coming down with it. The idea is going to be to make the next batch just a little bit lighter than the original one. I'm going to just kind of save that off to the side there just to use to compare what the next color should look like, or at least what it shouldn't look like, I guess. I'm going to bring that over, that blue over there. And I'm going to get some more blue and white. Yes, Brian, you approve of my subscription number. Okay, that's nice. So there's not a huge area. I'm gonna have to paint with the blue on the sky, and as I come down and I have more white added in there, I'll have less, of course, less blue. But I'll go just with this amount for now. Yeah, it's probably not going to be enough. Definitely be hard to estimate how much paint you need, especially when you're working on something this big. Like, the bigger it is, like, everything gets magnified. The space in your studio. How far you have to move your arm to make a stroke. How much paint you need. Oh. So I'm thinking, it took me a while to get the right amount of oil in there last time, so I don't remember how many actual drops I put in. I did 5 just now, so let me see if that's kind of close to what I need. I don't really have to worry about contaminating the blue with any white, because it's all going to get whiter, because it's all going to just go in the blue sky up there. I mean, maybe a little bit will be used for the shadow on the clouds, but not sure how late I'm going to stay up tonight. I was going to paint in all the clouds. That could take a while. Like maybe till 7 in the morning, which I've done before. I guess I could probably do them in less time than that. Okay, so that's 5 drops, which is not enough. Three more. Paint really is pretty similar to like cake frosting in a lot of ways. Not sure how bakers will mix up colors and stuff in frosting. I guess more like in a bowl or a big industrial mixer. Okay, so we're up to 8 now, so that's still not enough. Okay, now this is 11. Not sure if I'm going to need any drops for the white over there. It's a particular concern adding too much oil also to blue or purple, just because it can kind of affect the color more than other colors. The yellowing effect that happens over time. But you gotta just do it if that's what you need. I think this is probably, I mean, I don't know. Probably glossy enough. Still just like a little bit matte. Maybe I'll do like one more drop. I think maybe that'll be it. This is 12 now. All right, I guess that's fine. Okay, so yeah, definitely the white. The oil might have separated from the white in the tube a little bit there. It's feeling really stiff. Okay, so I've got something that's just slightly lighter than what I was doing before on the top. I'm gonna mix up a little bit more now. I'm just going next to that. I don't know if I need to really add any more oil to this. It's like going into the blue. I think it's kind of evening out all right as far as the consistency. Just getting slightly lighter as I go along here. Mixing up this much paint and then drying out before you're ready to finish it, that'd be really annoying. Of course, when it's really thick like this, it takes longer to dry out anyway. Well, when it's thick as in, like, when you have a lot of it, you eventually just get a skin, and then the part on the inside is probably still gonna be alright. If it's pretty thick as a big pile of paint. Alright, these two are not really that different. This is definitely more noticeably lighter, so and for now I'll leave that and back to it when I need to adjust it or add more or whatever. Okay, here comes the palette knife. Yeah. I don't know, I think it's maybe a little bit too matte still. Oh, okay, well, I'll just wipe it off, scrape it off. And a little bit more oil in there. Guess I should have known better since the white was, you know, like it needed something. Not really big enough issue to get all of it. Might as well just mix these together. They're pretty much the same. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll just do 2 drops, save the time of testing one and saying it's not enough. All right. No. Running out here. Hey, Vanessa. Just working on a commission here. A couple on the Glacier. So I'm getting a bunch of blue for the sky now. It's going to be a lot of it. Just got to add some oil in there to make it a little bit glossier, that it doesn't dry too matte, but I think that's maybe a good amount. I want to make sure it's mixed up, you know, the oil is mixed into the paint enough before I put it on there. You don't want to get some places that are shinier than others. That would be bad. Like crossing the streams, that would be bad. Okay, so well, I guess that's all right. I just want a slightly lighter blue here coming down. It shouldn't be too drastic, or else it's going to look dumb. I don't want it to look dumb. It is a long dog. Well, I was thinking it looked like a fox, but yeah, it's the power of the dog jumping over the mountain. Maybe that's what I should call this one. Long dog jumping over mountain. It's like a Native American name. One thing I have to make sure I'm doing here with the sky coming down, the gradient, is that it's even, level. Yuki. Oh, thank you. Well, with your name meaning snow, you probably like this scene of a glacier, so we'll fit right in here. Are you an artist also? I'm gonna start blending this together with the brush once I have some paint on there, a little bit more. Getting a lot of looks at the back of my head today. Not really any other way to paint something this big. You guys hearing that? So it's starting to really actually look like a sky now. That's nice. When you start painting things in and it looks better, it's nice when that happens. When it looks worse, then it's not nice. I don't always do this much palette knife use outside of the palette, but I'm liking how it's going here. So I'm getting right to the edge of where this blue is going to still be on there, and it goes to the next lighter blue. So I have to make sure it's in the same place from one side to the other. Okay, so let me just finish up this little splotch right over here with the lighter blue, but then I'm going to go in with the brush and soften that edge so that it's integrated with the outline that I did before better. So that's about it. Do the dog in a minute. Okay, so I'm gonna come up here. I'm getting rid of that palette knife texture, and I'm also blending this together. So that it's a nice smooth transition from the top to the bottom. I want to try not to go up against the clouds just yet, because then I'm going to be getting that paint on there, and You don't really want to get it all over the place. This part of the sky that's just blue. Not supposed to have any weird stuff going on, aside from just some of the little things happening right over there. So I'm gonna do this area first for the whole thing, where it's just the main blue area, and then along the edge after that, so I don't have any contamination. I gotta quarantine my clouds. Yes, this is board. So this is actually ampersand gesso board. So I think you've used that too, right, Brian? So if I was doing this on gesso, or on a, what do you call it, on stretched canvas right now, there'd be a lot of bouncing just every time I tapped it, which is another thing that I wasn't really crazy about back when I still worked on canvas. So I'm gonna get a good look at this to actually see if it's blended enough. I'll come over here and then I'll come back. Sometimes I'll actually stand on a chair just to get above my light. I mean, the light's still above, but it's creating all these little highlights that are making it hard to see for how high I am now. I have everything blended enough. I don't typically get extremely into the brush strokes so much. Like certain things maybe a little bit more than others, but this is one case that it definitely makes a difference what direction you're going in when it's up high like this. You could use a fan brush for this to get it really even also, but I don't really feel like I need to do that. And I think I am going to get my chair to make sure this is not going to be all weird looking. Oh, that one little, you know what? I'm going to do this one little spot over here too. Of course, I used up my blue from that whole kind of area, but no. I'll just get a little bit more in there. That's too dark. Okay, I think that's right around what I need here. So I'll put this up here. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna look at that transition there with my chair to make sure it's okay. I haven't had to do this for a long time. Well, okay. Of course, up here I can see it's all uneven, so good thing I checked it. Need a little bit more of that blue on there to just darken the brush. I don't know if it's really showing up on the camera, maybe not. But it's a little bit... I'm actually going to just get it from right over there in the darker blue. A little bit too noticeable where I blended it. So this is one place that you don't... Well, I mean, depending on how you want to paint it. You don't really want a whole bunch of big noticeable strokes in there. I mean, what I'm trying to do anyway is get it pretty even. So the sky is just kind of gradually going darker as it goes down, or lighter, I mean, as it goes down. You kind of just borrow it from the top and bring it downwards also. Sometimes what happens using the palette knife is I might have put a little bit more paint on the bottom, in the lower area up there, and then blending the two together, it'll end up influencing the top part more, but not a big deal. Kind of seems like that's what's happening because I'm really adding a lot of this darker blue in there and it's not really kind of going as far as I expect it to. So yeah, it's probably a little bit more down that way. Almost out of my dark blue here. All right, so from the other area on the right, and then go over there now. I guess that's fine. Okay, so I'm gonna have to just kind of get in front of the camera here for a little bit. I don't know if I have enough blue to get all this taken care of, but I'll try. Kind of spreading around the darker blue to start out in a few places, and then I'm going back in, blend it. Yeah, there's definitely stuff on the bottom is definitely thicker. I guess for me, the kind of brush strokes, if I get something kind of interesting, usually it's just kind of happens and I'm not really necessarily trying to get something like that. And I might just kind of keep it if I like it. which happens sometimes. I'm actually going to start from the bottom and go upwards here. Blend the lighter part into the darker part above. That's probably working better. That way there's a more even kind of blending going on. Feels a little more awkward actually working this way, but looks better for the painting. Alright, I think it actually went a lot better than the other one. So I'm gonna just say that part is blended enough to leave it. Probably, maybe not. Okay. Basically what I'm trying to do here is not have stripes going across that are made up of different blues. It's just looks like the sky and kind of nice smooth bunch of cat litter on the chair. A smooth change from the top to the bottom. Nice smooth operator here. Now I'm going to go in with a brush, and I got to just fix this one little spot here. Get the brush strokes in there and blend it a little bit better. Actually, maybe I should have done on the chair. Some of that dark blue is still on there. Okay, so now I'm going to finally go in there and go along that edge. So it's going to get a little more cloudy. Definitely getting, you know what, let me try a different light actually. This is giving me a lot of reflections over here. Doesn't really look as good on the camera, but maybe a little easier to see. Well, you see about both of them. I guess I'll just leave both of them on. Sometimes I'll change things around with the light, just specifically not to have that glare going on. And I can bring the painting down lower, but I can only bring it down so low because it's so big. Important when you're painting clouds not to have the edge be too hard. I kind of learned painting clouds a few times before. I think when I switched to the darker blue over here, it's a little bit better when I was doing the outline. But anyway, even if there is a pretty strong edge sometimes, I feel like if you go too hard with it, it just looks too different from the way the clouds tend to be. Don't have that same, airy look about them. You need a little bit of a random kind of shape along the edge also will help. Like I've got a little extra light over here and a little extra dark here, so I'm going to just kind of go back and forth and sort of use the painting as my palette here and get what I want. There's certain parts where the clouds spread out a little bit more. It's I think all right. It adds to the look of the kind of way the edge looks on the cloud. Not really blending as much on the right here for some reason. Sometimes if there's, the one color is a little bit more liquidy than the other, then that can affect things aside from how much of the one color there is compared to the other. Hey Maria, thanks for joining. I have to darken this again, it's getting too light right here. This part on this one area, getting a little bit out of control there. I gotta just bring it back down. And the same thing over here, just darkening this edge a little bit more. Tricky thing is to get it still to have the right shape, not be too big, but also have that kind of cloud edge. I think the main thing I'm going to be focusing on, aside from just putting in the sky for today, is getting all the edges taken care of that are running up against from the sky into the cloud. I might have to go back in, most likely, and finish up the clouds a different day, because this is just a lot going on here. Huckleberry, thanks for coming back. Just going around the edges here and blending the sky into the cloud where it needs to be. I need that cloudy sort of texture on the side. sometimes by going over this whole thing like I'm doing, it may not really seem like there's like it almost seems like you're going right up against the edge of the clouds, but there's just a little halo there that sort of helps to give it the softer kind of look once you paint everything in at whatever point. I think I've got it pretty much where I need it. That's all that. Let's come in here a little bit more. Okay, I think I'm gonna come back over and over this edge right here just to lighten it up a little bit. Something pretty strong right there right now. I think I need to add some more oil to the white over there. Just grabbing some of that to go over the edges here. Oh. Get some more oil out of the bigger container here. Schmelkelberry, did you decide to actually start doing any painting again yet? I'm thinking about it. is just kind of like the consistency of marshmallow fluff. Some of these places that I'm doing on the edge here are not exactly white. Like this one little bump up here is actually kind of gonna be a darker gray when I paint the cloud in more. But I'm just keeping it simple. I'm not gonna go nuts with blending different colors in there for what I'm doing right now and then going back later and fixing that. Like, well, I'm gonna go back later and fix it. What I'm doing. This is enough just to get it soft enough that it's not this really strong edge there. Kind of liking the texture over here on the edge. It's, like, I think one of the nicer places right now. Of course, I got to still paint that all in, so it may look completely different, and all the stuff I like might go away by the time I'm done. But yeah, no, whatever. Oh, so I feel like I'm a slow painter, but I think that if you're painting realism, a lot of the time it's just how long it takes. But well, I don't know. There's some people, like, I admire people that are able to do realism quickly. I think there are some people, but it's kind of rare. Especially when it's a bigger painting. You know, things just, like, everything takes longer when it's bigger. So, you know, that's definitely a factor for this one in particular. Oh, hey, Daniel. Yeah, I've done some paintings that are, you know, like the other ones I was working on before this one while I was streaming. You know, they took way less time than this one will be taking by the time it's done. And I've done some things that were, you know, kind of quick. Like, I've done some paintings that only took like a day or two. But like, my kind of general ideal amount of time is a little bit, well, definitely significantly longer than that. But I think it's nice to try doing a quick one every so often also, and kind of doing a very fast painting may kind of influence your other ones that you're doing that you're not doing fast at all, but, you know, may go a little bit faster, just some of the things that you kind of do when you're doing the quick ones. It's like each of these little edge places I'm doing right now, there's like, you know, 10 different ways you could, or more, that you can go in there and just like paint that, but I'm kind of using a combination of a few different ones. Like, you can go along the edge, or you can just kind of go like this, or you can just like kind of add pieces in there, you know, whatever. Whatever makes it look like clouds, that's what I'm doing. Just kind of breaking it up more so it's not so solid in a lot of the places. Yeah. Have you heard the new track, Brian, from Mogwai? Haven't heard. Well, I guess New Rock is the last thing I heard from them, but I don't think that's very new. Whatever it's called. Yeah, New Rock, right? Which is now maybe not new anymore. They have to change the name. I think I'm almost done with this top area here and just like going around the edges and beating the devil out of it, as Bob Ross would say. So I'm gonna have to go down and just fill in more of that blue sky. Yeah. Well, you listen to any of that Mangled meditations I sent? Pretty weird. But I like it. You know, Schmuckleberry, I have a feeling you might be interested in this. I don't know why. But there's something called Mangled Meditations, which is not about meditating, but it's just very out there kind of audio collages of random things, and it's like stuff that's been looped and, you know, made into music, and then there's like a weird sound, you don't know what it is, you know. Well, last time I bought a Mogwai album was, I don't know, more than a decade ago. I still like them though. Alright, so I'm gonna just fix this one little spot here and then go do the more. I'm gonna do the jumping dog right now. So I'm gonna get more of this here blue. So I've got this part right here is about the same level as this area. I just put that in there, and how do I get my brush to have that same color on it? Well, I guess actually, let me just see what it looks like. I guess that's about right. I mean, sure. Maybe I'll just, well, I was gonna just go along the edge, but then I'm gonna get all that extra lighter paint in there, so I'll just use the palette knife to put this color up on there, and it's probably not gonna be enough, so I'll have to mix more, but we'll see. The dog is pretty skinny up here. Painting with the palette knife can definitely speed things up here. What I'm doing right now. I'm gonna just go back over it and, you know, put some brush strokes on it so it doesn't look like it doesn't belong with everything else going on in the painting. Here's the tail. Getting some, like, it sounds like a car's driving by outside with like really loud music playing, some, you know, bass drums, but it's just the painting rocking on the easel. It's not a guy rocking out in his car, it's just the painting rocking on the easel. And I guess by the bottom of the dog I need to make a lighter blue. Another thing you can do to keep the paint from getting matte when it's drying is painting really thickly, but I don't really paint all that thick, so it doesn't really apply to me so much. And then again, if you go too thick, like somebody was saying before, then you could maybe have some weird stuff happening, like cracking or something. So that's not good either. This is not really going to show up on the camera, but covering up the really flat texture here. One of the reasons I do that is if I don't, and there's like, even if I'm like, oh, that looks kind of nice just with like the really flat palette knife kind of edge there, whatever the flatness. If I have to go over one little spot later, as I see there's something that's messed up, and there'll just be this one little squiggly thing that looks totally different and it looks stupid. So I don't want that. I just have to go down here just to like see that I'm getting everything. It's really not showing up that much from where I'm looking at it. But there's some angles where you can see things like this that they'll really show up and be very obvious. So I'm gonna get a lighter blue for down here. Just kind of thinning out this blue so that it can blend with the next color a little bit better. No. I'll get some more blue out of that tube. Yes, you know what? I gotta do this one little spot over here also. Just one little area by itself. I kind of like how that looks actually, even though it's not like the photo. Let me just leave that. But I'm gonna have to get some more blue out of there. Well, you know, there's hardly any more blue to do. I'll just get a little bit. I don't have enough now. Unless I just use this over here. If I just bring it all together, and this is probably not going to be enough, but let's see what I get here. Yeah, that's not going to be enough. So, let me just get some more. I don't need a whole lot. I think that once I finish the blue of the sky here, and that'll be it for tonight with El Streameroni. Actually, I think I might have finally gotten the hang of how much oil to add to this cerulean here. Did 3 to the amount that I put out, and it's like not super glossy, but it looks about right. Color adjustment on this camera, and I shut it off, but it looks like everything is still too red over here. But the actual color that you see on the painting on that other camera, that's really how it should be. That's the correct color. Actually using an iPhone for the main picture, so I think they're better with color than the low G I'm using. Alright, so this is just slightly lighter, which is what I need. So I'm gonna put that up there. It's not a lot, but maybe that's just about what I need. Just the right amount. Yeah, I guess that's about where I need it. So pretty subtle, but that's what it should be. Adding a little bit of white on the palette knife to just even that out so it's about the same color as what I'm using now. And here's our little jumping dog friend. Michael, thanks for stopping by. Adding the sky area here around all this big mess of clouds. Now that the part I'm working on is a little lower, I don't have as much kind of reflection coming off of the light in my room, so that's nice. That was kind of annoying. Not really much getting around that though. I mean, you can try a different light in a different location, but something is this high, you're kind of looking upwards at it. It just happens. Hey, Brian, I don't know if this stream is ready for Kramer. I'm thinking, like, what story could I tell from Kramer here? Definitely not the Mexican story. I'm going to Mexico. I'm doing this edge on the clouds here. I want to try to make sure it's not too extremely regular looking. Like right over here, I feel like that's just, it needs a little bit of varying the sort of the sharp, a little bit of sharp edges there are. And then the kind of fanning out part. So I'm going to probably go back in there and just get that a little bit more kind of broken up. Like right now it almost looks like there's like a Photoshop edge that was put on it or something that expanded out at the exact same amount all around it. So that's not really what I want. I have a similar thing happening over here. I'm gonna make it a little bit more random. Got yoga in my head now. I'm gonna just put a little tuft in here. Just find myself wanting to make Bob Ross noises while I'm doing this. No particular reason. I need a little bit more. Bring that part out again. Oh wow, been doing this for 3 hours already today. All right, well I'm gonna be wrapping it up pretty soon with the rest of the sky over there once this dog is all outlined here. And no, Brian, I'm not going to start wrapping, it's just wrapping it up. Guess this is the longest one I've done so far. Much of these little kind of round edge things happening around the bottom part right here. I'm gonna kind of put them back in without making it too much like what I just did. So I'm gonna have to go and fix that now too. But this is one of those cases. It's not really doing what I want. It's just like doing something other than what I want. Yeah, I guess that's all right. It's kind of like painting a tree a little bit. I think once I go back and add some of the darker blue, and kind of like bring things out, make them look better. Not really crazy about it over here right now, but it's not that important of an area. Okay, that is... I think I like that a lot more than what I was doing before in that area. Of course, I'm kind of seeing the whole area I'm working on right there. A little bit different than the reference, but it's alright. It's a cloud. Okay, I'm gonna go back and do the darker areas to kind of push things the other way again now. So like over here, gotta decide which one of these things to change, I guess. Just get rid of that. This looks pretty even right here, so it needs to kind of look like the clouds have that sort of like breaking apart effect on the edges a lot of the time. Actually, oh, I think that's a lot better already. I don't really even have to do too much else, probably. Okay. like there's maybe a little bit too much texture on this bottom part. Clouds, I mean, this is not too far off from the reference, but clouds tend to be a little bit smoother on the bottom. Kind of flat. I think I need to just sort of simplify this a little bit here. All right, and there's this little part down here I didn't really do yet, so I think maybe ready to move on to that one last part on the right there in a minute. Okay, so now the part over here on the right. Oh, actually, I actually never went in here. Ugh. I never fixed the texture from the palette knife after I did that, so I've got to still do that part over here. Okay. And then I've got to just blend the bottom part together with the top part, which I didn't do. Now I already fixed up the edge, so I got to try not to mess up the edge while I'm doing this, but whatever, fine. I'm actually kind of liking the way this cloud looks in this one spot here, so I'm trying not to mess it up. Just by going back and changing the brush strokes here. Okay, so I definitely need to blend the bottom and the top here. It's not blending that much right now. And that's better. Oh, hey, Bonnie. Been going for a while here. I've been coming up on 3.5 hours. How you doing? Any cool projects you're working on? Just have a little bit of blue sky left to add on here. And then it's just all clouds, which I'm not going to be doing on the stream. So I guess that is okay as it is. Kind of like you can't even really see the difference with the glue on the top versus the bottom, which I guess that's basically what I want. Okay, so I'm gonna just do this little small area right here. And then just finish up that little place on the right. Okay, I just put it on with the palette knife like before. I'm not going to forget to take off the palette knife texture before I do all the blending of the edges. I would never do a thing like that. Got some paint still on my brush here. I can just like wipe it off and use that. I need this just a little bit. Well, part of it anyway, a little bit lighter than what I have for the jumping dog here in the middle. Computer's getting a little hot. Actually, I've got a few blues here. I gotta make sure I'm actually using the right one. I like to test how light the top part needs to be before I get the color for the bottom. And this is the same. It's maybe a little bit darker. That's too light. These blues are very close. Well, I guess right around here maybe. Maybe a little more darker. Okay, I think this is probably fine. So I'll just get a little bit more of that. So might as well use what's on the brush already. Okay. Okay, so now seems like there's a slight vignette kind of thing happening in the reference, but I'm gonna just leave that out because it's probably just the camera. So I'm gonna get a little starting to feel kind of delirious. It's been a while I've been working on this thing. I'm gonna get a white and put it into this blue here. And just do that bottom, lowest point where it should be lighter than everything else in the sky because that's the lowest area. Okay, and same as before, just barely lighter, that's what I want. Okay, so got this just about covered here, and now I'm gonna just go in there and get rid of all that flat texture. Okay, and now I'm just gonna fix the edge real quick. Liking how this bottom on the right is going. Sometimes things just kind of work out really well, and other times they don't. But this is going pretty good, I think. Just kind of going along the edge here with the white on the brush. Could be just the amount of paint that I put on with the palette knife was just the right amount for what I'm doing here. With that stuff, went a lot easier than some of the other things I was doing in the middle. Yeah, I feel like that's, wow. The only thing I'm looking at is how big the shape is of that compared to the other parts. Just want to make sure it's like kind of pushed back enough perspective-wise, actually. But I guess it's all right. All right, so I think that's going to do it for today. So thanks for joining me. If you're interested in lessons I teach, drawing, painting, Photoshop, various things that are along the lines of that. And please like, subscribe, follow, do all that kind of stuff if you want to see more of what I'm doing here. And I'm going to be working on this again next time. Still going to be a while before this painting's finished. There's a lot more to do on it. So thanks for stopping by, and see you next time.